I kind of approached it a bit like an artist because when I moved here in 2016 from Arizona, my career, if you will, started by buying and selling found objects and some vintage art, nothing of usual significance, but decorative art. And I would build these vignettes on Instagram and just had a blank wall in my apartment, and I'd build a scene with a chair, a piece of art, a lamp, a table. So since we've come from such a scrappy point, it's always been people in the decorative realm, which is interior designers, but with that, they're working with us as advisors and the dealer to help their clients start an actual collection.
Welcome to What's My Thesis. I'm Javier Proenza, and today my guest is Rhett Baruch. And we were just talking a little bit about your background. So you converted to Christianity, like casually. Casual converts.
That's right.
That it sounds like you're a Catholic then.
No. Again, it's like is kind of casual and lackluster as possible. There's no baptism, nothing. Just found faith. Just as you get older, I feel like
fear kicks in. Dude.
Fear kicks in. Time's ticking and life gets hard and business is tough and you need something to lean on.
What denomination?
I would just literally say.
You just like Christ.
I wouldn't even, sure. Yeah, exactly.
You like what he stands for.
Absolutely.
That's
I think the lessons.
I mean, dude, I was thinking about that today, that like, that's basically what I'm not religious, but my morality comes very much from a Christian perspective. And I never really,
I can tell.
It clicked. And I was like, I care about poor people and shit like that because of like what you're actually supposed to do. So anyway, I think that we're probably both the same level of Christian.
And that's kind of like the bad word maybe is religion. It gives a lot of negative connotations. And of course, if you fall under that, it makes life more difficult because of the what you have to hold yourself to. So generically, it's just faith.
Yeah, and I think that there is like there's a human element to faith, the concept of faith. Mm-hmm. And I think that you see a lot of people that don't really know things having faith in institutions in a similar way, but they don't necessarily like know what the fuck they're talking about. Like, I feel like, not to get too specific on anything, but I feel like the way that some people talk about science, I'm like, it's the antithesis of how of the scientific method,
Absolutely.
So I think that like I've said it a lot on the show. I think that part of the tendency of human beings is to be dogmatic, whether you do it through a faith or anything like that. It's almost like if you take that away from us, then you're taking away humanity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't know a whole ton about say AI and the adhesion to technology, and what that does remove from people. I think even the softening of automation with one-click checkout and things show up at your door, it sort of removes everything about the human, right? And how it happens. And I can go all the way back to, flipping on a light switch and how that is such a blessing and luxury that you don't even think about everything in between that creates that.
Oh yeah, dude.
Right. And I mean, that's like that's a simple luxury at this point in our lives.
No, I mean, dude, like the whole thing that's happening right now with tariffs, like it's crazy because it's hitting so many rich people really hard, and it's hard not to be like, sure. But at the same time, I've never in my life seen something where nobody knows what the fuck is happening.
For sure.
Like people say they think they know, but even there are so many qualifications to what people are saying about it. I have no fucking idea.
Like the memes of like overnight everyone became an economist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sort of. Okay.
They're like all of a sudden they've known about tariffs and stuff. Yeah. So but it's fascinating. It is really fascinating to just watch all of that. But someone made the point recently that like what people are upset about is like not getting things for slave labor.
Exactly.
Like that is kind of mind blowing.
You can't have it both ways, sort of. It's just sort of a retooling of the mind and I think most people know, where it comes from, but I think the simple economics in logistics even of the idea of making a sneaker in another country that's primarily unregulated,
Yeah.
and there's no human rights protection. These are things most people you think know, yet they continue to support the brands that exploit that.
Yeah. No, for sure.
And it's sort of like, and in my eyes, considering, chatted about this with somebody yesterday, the bureaucracy and middle management necessary to have a company overseas and then bring it here, you need double the manpower.
Yeah.
Where you could just reduce staff and et cetera and have manufacturing here. And hypothetically, the price would remain the same. It wouldn't be 30%, 50% more.
Well, one of the interesting things that, and we can go, I do want to ask you about cars and so much more. So I was literally watching confessions, like murder confessions, to not talk about politics. Although I chose the wrong thing because it's still pretty dark and put me in a dark mood. I tend to watch like film criticism, like funny shit, before an episode, so that I'm not like so angry. Yeah. But one of the things that I found was interesting, and again, I am not in support. I have taken a hit. I have definitely taken a hit. I am not in support of or against. I just don't know. I am a fucking ignoramus, and I don't think anybody knows what is going to happen. But one of the things that I've heard people say is that when we sanctioned Russia and they couldn't be part of the global economy, their economy boomed.
Interesting. I think they also shifted to backing the ruble with gold as well. So that's sort of like a no-brainer, I think.
Yeah. And then there's so many people that are commenting about it and they're being like, he should do what he's doing, but, and then like things like dismantling the Federal Reserve. It's crazy. I'm watching like lefties. I'm watching, conservatives talk about this. I'm watching CNBC. Nobody fucking knows what is going to happen.
Well, yeah, it's a funny timeline, isn't it?
Yeah.
And in the way, the goalposts and the sides move around most recently.
Constantly.
You're saying, like, think Tesla.
Yeah.
I mean, it's...
Now we're talking cars.
Well, yeah.
Let's shit on Teslas.
Yeah, right. Primarily, it's the people, let's say, on the left that would have supported green energy and renewable energy and electric cars, of course. And now they're in this predicament where, they're the primary owners of them who happen to hate the company and founder.
Yeah.
So it just...
No, and the thing that I love with that is the sweet irony, is just the people vandalizing cars, knowing that, like, I mean, MAGA was not really... I've been anti-Tesla. First of all, I used to work for rich people that bought them in Manhattan Beach as a soccer coach at club soccer, and I was kind of like mesmerized by the idea of them. Yeah. But as a car guy, I quickly found out they're shit cars. Yeah. They are they're like worse than your iPhone,
Fit and finish, terrible.
Yeah. Do you watch Whistling Diesel?
It's Instagram?
No, it's a YouTuber that he became rich by destroying cars, and now he's buying supercars and destroying them.
Yeah, like off-road Ferraris and
He
trashed the Tesla, like the test.
He did the test for the Cybertruck,
yep.
And the A-pillar, you can literally just pull off that veneer.
Yeah.
So that metal is like, it's so lame, dude.
Yeah, it is. And on top of it all, it's like the further you get away from what cars were, the more you appreciate buttons.
Yeah.
And analog world in general. Yeah. And those are things that, some car companies have kept alive. And I appreciate that because the experience is primarily on the inside and the focus has been primarily on the outside of cars.
Yeah.
Car design, which you can never beat what they were doing in the 20s and 30s. And I mean, you look at the bodies of those cars and it's untouchable.
No, they're so ornate. They're like, they're like Gilded Age.
Exactly. There's no expense spared. There's no interest in efficiency or safety. It's simply design.
You step out of one of those and you step on a peasant.
Right. Maybe.
It was fucking roaring 20s, man. Yeah. Well, cool. So let's talk. I've gone too much without hyping up the episode about who you are. So you are Rhett Baruch.
Either. I like the first version.
Baruch.
Baruch. Yeah.
Baruch. Yeah. But you go by Baruch.
Baruch.
Sorry. Yeah. I just keep putting I should do it like it's Italian. and the CH sound, Baruch.
Yeah.
There
you go.
So you run Rhett Baruch Gallery.
That's right.
In I never told you this, or I haven't told you this. I figured I'd wait till now. I went to your gallery, but you guys were closed. I went to visit Liz Hirsch at 893. They have like a residential gallery.
Oh, okay. Huh.
And
I should know that.
Yeah, and you guys are right next to each other. Oh. And then from there I went and checked you out because it said on Google, but I shouldn't have expected Google to be right.
I made some mistakes there, but the good news is we do have open hours for the first time.
Oh,
we run Wednesday through Saturday. Noon to 5, and hoping to expand. But yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, on Melrose.
On Melrose, yeah. You guys got a nice spot. Like when I see the pictures of the show, of like the attendance and stuff, it looks like you have like. It forms like a little patio outside.
Yeah.
Like you have enough walkway in front.
Over.
That you guys can like hang out and not be right on the street, like maybe in Los Feliz and stuff.
Yeah, there's a little reprieve.
Yeah,
and then it's nice to gather outside, and it's a smaller space, so people tend to congregate outside. And for most of our shows, we have like our friends that run Fiella, which is a beer company, and so we have draft beer out front. Nice. So it feels a bit like you're at in general, kind of like it's a dive gallery and a dive bar.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's nice to kind of take over the little section of Melrose, and we're right next to Ríos and Providence. It's like, I think, a Michelin star restaurant. So it's a good little sleepy area that is between Highland and Western. And of course, there's a lot going on art and design wise on those streets. So.
How far would Reagan projects?
Oh, like they're on Santa Monica, I think.
So like
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Yeah.
By car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In 2 minutes to Nanaka Hill by car.
Yeah.
4 or 5 minutes to Western to get to Warner and
how. So you. Okay, we're getting down into the gallery questions, and then I do want to ask you about cars, but okay, so. I guess the first question, you listened to the one that I did with Tyler Parks. That's how I got a sense that you might be interested in doing this as well. You left me very nice comments. People leave me comments. Yes. I appreciate them and I notice them. But so from that, I kind of got a sense. We met the first time was at Christopher Ríos' show at Charlie James.
Yeah.
And we were talking a little bit about that. So I guess my first question was, because I asked him about how he got together his collector base.
Yeah.
And he basically told me he didn't know any other way to do it. And I asked you, and you seem to have a different experience on doing that, or a different insight on how that's done.
Yeah.
How do you go about building a collector base? And maybe I'm going to probably ask you a bunch of the same questions because I don't know if how differently things run.
Yeah.
It might be a bunch of the same answers, but...
artist first gallery, and also a gallery that doesn't run things normally.
So you guys, how do you guys... Tell me about the gallery, I guess, is the starting point.
Well, again, to dabble into the car conversation, I come from what you might call like an unorthodox background.
Mm-hmm.
I do think cars and the tuning of cars and being interested in quality parts and craftsmanship and fabrication certainly lent itself to my later interest in art and design and how I approached it and thought about it.
Did you work in the car industry in any capacity, or you were just a hobbyist? Yeah. People who don't know, you used to have a Type R 2001, which is an iconic car for car people.
Yeah.
It's an Integra for people that want to Google it and don't know. We don't want to lose you.
Yeah.
But go ahead. So what kind of cars were you into growing up?
Honda Acura.
Yeah.
It was like the golden era of that, right?
So you were running B16s and stuff?
My first car had a B16.
What was it?
A 92 Civic Hatch.
Oh, okay.
A white one,
nice.
CX, no side mirror.
That was the second gen, right? No, that's like third gen. Yeah, like that's third gen. Because they have the old ones that look like muscle cars.
Yeah, well, it's like, I think the Civic started, like the CVCC or whatever was like early 80s.
Yeah.
But I think the very first Civic was 84 maybe. And then they did a SI of that car, which I actually really like those cars now. Again, what I said earlier, everything as it gets older, I appreciate it more.
Yeah.
At the time when I got into cars in the early aughts, it was the EG was right in between.
Yeah,
The 92, 95 Civic was not old, but it wasn't like cutting edge, of course.
Yeah.
It was a couple generations past.
Yeah, but it was what the culture fucking loved.
Oh,
right.
It's still the car.
Yeah. No.
Like,
Oh yeah,
it's
for
still the
sure.
car.
Yeah. Of that era, I mean, I the only one that sometimes gets a little bit more play, but I think it's an uglier car, is the fourth gen with the
EK? The one after it?
Well, you were talking about the 92. I'm talking about the next generation.
Yeah.
The
EK.
EK, yeah, the one with the bigger lights.
Yep.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
That was what I had after.
That's what you had after?
The 96 hatch. And then I got into Integras.
Then you got into Integras?
Yeah.
How many did you have?
3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had the first one was very cool. It was a 94 RS.
Yeah.
Which is like the closest thing to a Type R, not the power plant, but it's the only one that didn't come with a sunroof. And it was like lighter sound editing and no wing, and just a more stripped down version, which is if you're into Hondas and kind of sport compacts, like you want light, you want simple. And that was also a really rare color, only done in that year. It was called Thunder Gray Metallic.
Okay.
So a kind of cool color again, like basically gunmetal.
Yeah.
But they only did it in 1 year for the Integra, and I had that. Sold it to a buddy, turned it into a track car, and he ended up rolling it on track. Actually,
that's where they end up.
Yeah. And then I got my first Type R.
Okay.
So it was a 97, which also kind of the one to have. It was the first U.S. market Type R.
And for people that don't know, the big deal about the Type R is that it didn't understeer, even though it was a front wheel drive car. So it did well in racing, right? What group was it in?
The SCCA groups. The real time car was sort of a famous one. We competed against like 3 Series BMW and forget what else. I didn't follow racing that closely, to be honest.
No, I've only gotten into it now. Yeah. I kind of want to go. Oh, you know what? We should go to the Grand Prix.
The Grand Prix would be cool.
Yeah.
The Long Beach?
Yeah. I realized that it's not F1 anymore. It hasn't been F1 for a long time, but I worked at it at one point. I used to do work as a brand ambassador for Ford.
Oh, nice.
At events and stuff. So that's how I got into. I used to just be into cars and not really be into motorsports. NASCAR is okay, but NHRA.
Yeah.
NHR is the
top
shit.
Fuel.
Yeah, top fuel, and the nitro cars.
It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, those things, they like run once and then they have to rebuild them entirely. It's crazy. The millions that go into that. And then F1 is pretty exciting.
I mean, it'll always be kind of peak, but of course, as we were talking about with regulatory, stuff, it's really kind of taking the fun out of it.
Yeah.
Where those cars should basically explode your eardrums, and now they're like hybrids.
Yeah. Although hybrids, the torque on a hybrid is pretty dope.
No doubt.
I'm not a hater on that. Well, speaking about like, the broader car conversation, just like what I don't like about how I don't mind the death of the manual if the automatic can go faster, but I don't like how everything's becoming like a tracking tool.
Yeah.
Right. And cars, you're no longer necessarily going to be that. It's not easy to work on them anymore. The analogness of a car, I think, is what made the 90s car culture so awesome. Whereas now it's like.
And then that was going around away then anyways, right?
Yeah.
With like OBD, the onboard diagnostics and emissions controls, and it just became increasingly more difficult. There's double of everything and lots of fail safes, and you couldn't drive a car or go into limp mode through because like it's not burning the fuel mixture right. Just lots of, as you said, kind of lack of control. I think the biggest thing with the manual issue is just the choice. It doesn't matter if it's faster or not. To me, it just matters if like you like driving a car that you can control more.
I mean, I don't mind the paddles is what I mean by automatics. Like sure. But I get what you're saying. Like the feel of a stick and just being able to feel the transmission while it's like vibrating, pushing a clutch in, all of that stuff. I'm going to miss it, but
missing a gear and blowing the engine. Nice.
That's fun.
Yeah.
So when the B16 Civic, was that a swap?
Yeah.
It
was
because that didn't come factory.
No. In America, the EG never got anything but a single cam.
Yeah.
And they did the SI, which got a single cam VTEC, which was okay, but
so it would go
Yeah,
That
you get it.
VTEC sound.
It's fun.
Yeah, that's something that's died because of the iVTEC. And you no longer hear the sound.
And
of
they're
it kick
turbo
you.
now.
Yeah, no.
Everything's turbo.
Did you ever do the case swaps?
Yeah.
Okay.
My last Type R was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
The K20 Type R, full running gear.
K20A?
Yeah.
Nice.
Full running gear, LSD, 6-speed. Had cams, pistons. It made like 250 wheel.
I feel like we're trolling the artists.
Yeah, let's step away. But cars, I think, coming back to your question, or my point rather, is that the cars influenced getting into art. And speaking again off of Ríos and the collector base, really organically and not really from a business-minded approach, to be honest. I kind of approached it a bit like an artist because when I moved here in 2016 from Arizona, my career, if you will, started by buying and selling found objects and some vintage art, nothing of usual significance, but decorative art, 50s, 60s, whatever looked good and had some age to it. And I would build these vignettes on Instagram and just had a blank wall in my apartment, and I'd build a scene with a chair, a piece of art, a lamp, a table, pottery. If you go way back, you can see some of that stuff on Instagram. But like the other day, I posted like a little vignette in the apartment. If it looks good, I'm trying not to muddy the waters as to, identifying as a white cube fine art gallery, and also, confusing people, if you will, by seeing a historic apartment with some like pottery and stuff and windows and things they don't expect to see by following a gallery. But it's a nuanced fine line of what we're trying to carve out as far as, our identity. So again, coming back to it, is our collector base is essentially interior designers.
Okay.
I would not say we have a formal traditional art collector, somebody who, introduces themselves as such. And that would, to me, would mean like they're avid collectors. They do something else, obviously. But when they're in an art event or speaking to art adjacent people, they're going to sort of say that first, I feel like.
Yeah.
And that's because they have so much extra disposable income. They invest in the arts. And of course, I appreciate that. But I think those are a bit harder to get to without the accreditation and connections. Like maybe, for example, speaking on Tyler Park, Tyler came from Gabali and some other, recognizable galleries. So he had that legit check, if you will.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah. So since we've come from such a scrappy point, it's always been people in the decorative realm, which is interior designers. But with that, we are attempting to sort of turn our designers into kind of advisors, if you will. They're working with us as advisors and the dealer to help their clients start an actual collection. A lot of interior design, there's a ton of investment in the finishes and the materials, from the faucets to the wallpaper, to the case goods, to the soft goods, sofa fabric, etc. And I feel personally that most of the time designers miss on the art and objects.
Yeah.
Either they're going to rent them, or they're going to acquire work that is more just decorative and commercial than it is the, investment to another human that has been sort of approved, if you will, by a gallery.
Yeah.
For whatever that's worth. So that's sort of where we're at now. So we're kind of converting domesticated folks who might be a lawyer or a finance person who are getting into making a nice home with their family, and then finding out that art is really fun and interesting.
Yeah.
It kind of continues that exploration and excitement of like building your home and not just living in a sort of plain empty thing.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're seeding new collectors, essentially.
That's right. Yeah. But again, to kind of finalize that point, is that we aren't necessarily finding your standard art collectors.
No,
who might be sitting on boards of institutions or have been collecting for 30 years.
Yeah.
We're getting there. We're getting the interest.
How long have you guys been open?
September of 2022.
Oh, wow. So you guys are pretty fresh.
Yeah.
Wow. You're not doing too bad.
We made the first 2 years.
Yeah, yeah.
And from my perspective, we're doing better and better.
Yeah, yeah.
I think we know the learning curve is so immense, because we didn't come from that.
Yeah, yeah.
So we really just kind of jumped in and didn't.
We is you and your partner. What was her name? Patty. I met her.
Girlfriend.
Patty.
Yeah.
Oh, girlfriend.
Yeah.
What's her last name?
Sanchez.
Patty
Sanchez. Yeah.
Just full shout out instead of
yeah. She'll hear this, of course. Yeah. She's not one to want to be in front of the camera in this situation, but she does sort of act as the muse for the brand, if you will. I say brand because that's sort of how I perceive it unapologetically. We have fun with it. We're interested in, graphic design and good illustrations and flyers and fonts and just a little sauce on it, rather than totally committing to the formality of a really quiet nature of what most galleries try to present.
Yeah.
We dabble, sometimes we'll do something a lot more traditional and simple. Other times we'll have fun with it.
Yeah.
It depends on what the work is and how much time we have. A lot of factors there.
How do you build those relationships with those designers? See, because to me it's interesting because, like I said, no one talks any of this,
Yeah.
and I like no one really talks any of how a space, and just looking at the space, I wouldn't know, how you guys are cutting out your piece of the pie. So it's interesting to me. So again, how did you build those relationships with designers? How did they like, was it through the Instagram sceneries, setups?
Which is another blessing and curse of Instagram, I always say, because it had been the hand that had fed me for so long. So in 2016, it was through 2020-ish, it was really good for me to be able to make these vignettes. And for a couple years, it was near daily that I would do this because I would spend most of my time
Did you have the gallery?
No.
At the time? So
No.
this is how you led into the gallery?
Yeah, like in the really long-winded way, because we're talking from 2016 and then not founding the gallery until 2022.
Yeah.
So 6 years.
But I guess I'm saying you didn't just start a gallery and then try to figure out from that point. You had sort of the interest that could support that, and you had
sure.
Yeah, you didn't just jump in blind.
Not totally. Yeah. I mean, there was.
I mean, it's opening a gallery. I don't want to minimize. It is a big jump of faith for sure. Yeah.
But you're right. There's some of the, of course, clients and having people interested in having a following on Instagram was good for me to leverage it into being like, now I have a gallery. Yeah. Right. So
were you connecting artists to work at that point? Was that already happening?
Yeah.
So you were already making art deals with these people.
Right.
Okay.
So again, because of Instagram was really purely like decorative, you would come onto my page and you would see this kind of editorial looking scene,
I still see, I gotta say, I've seen you've done some
It'd
stuff
be wilder
recently.
before because I would like have fun with it. I would go to an estate and come home with 40 new pieces, and sometimes I would like put most of those out and just make this really beautiful kind of chaotic catalog scene and inquire for details, and people would want to buy stuff. And that's how I got interior designers, because I would sort of target them, I guess you could say too. I would invite them to come by, and so I had a good platform because I have a 1920s apartment in Little Bangladesh. It's right next to
I didn't even know there was that place called Little Bangladesh.
It's got a sign off the 101, so it's very real.
Is it near Hollywood?
Ish, like I think it's sort of rides East Hollywood.
Okay.
It's 101 in Vermont.
All right.
So, between basically Vermont and Western, or say Normandy specifically, and just from like 1st to 3rd Street is this little area of Little Bangladesh. And it's a nice apartment. It's a 4-plex. It's the only original unit there, so it's got these beautiful arched windows that open like floor to almost ceiling.
Yeah.
It's got a batch elder fireplace, like an original 20s batch elder.
I don't know what that is. I'll Google
You've
it
seen
later.
them, yeah. They're very, very decorative tiles.
While I'm editing, I'll be like,
you'll see. It's beautiful. A lot of that work was in Pasadena, which I think his name might have been, don't quote me, I think like Ernest Batchelder or something, but 20s stuff. So it's got charm, and I like age, especially in the context of that type of juxtaposition of showing contemporary work alongside, historic architecture.
Yeah.
Like right now, Milan's going on Design Week, and I'm seeing all of these posts with just, next level materiality and furniture and lighting design injected into, 17th, 18th century.
And I think Milan is probably the best place for that.
For sure.
In all of Italy, in terms of like, because they have the fashion industry there.
Yeah.
Whereas like the rest of Italy, their art scene is a little bit like, they're sitting on their laurels, I think, to some degree.
I think Europe at large, right?
Is anything outside of Paris.
It is pretty traditional, and they hold on to those roots or what have you. But yeah, so that was really beneficial for me.
And maybe London too. Sorry.
Yeah. I haven't been to any of them, but they from the outside they look great. And it was just a good platform to invite people very centrally located if they're already shopping on Melrose or La Cienega, I'm 10 minutes away. Come check out this sort of speakeasy design showroom where you could, get pottery, get a lamp, get a table, one-stop shop, And so to your earlier question, I ended up taking on contemporaries because I was interested in that too. And I happened to follow and like...
What do you mean taking on contemporaries? Artists?
Yeah, painters, potters for sure, designers, lighting, again, carpenters, kind of engineer type people, again, coming back to the cars that do interesting fabrication, metalsmiths, blacksmiths, 3D printing, kind of anyone that made something interesting, sort of what I was after. And I would have, among vintage pottery and art, a contemporary piece. And anyways,
it's interesting. It seems like you are. It's not to be a Florida man and use a sailing analogy, but it seems like you've been able to use the winds that are available to you to pursue interests. Because I mean, like you're the way that you describe, you're going to shows like Christopher Ríos's. You're definitely interested in fine art and all of that, right? Like, so it's interesting how you used the things you were like. I wish I had done something like that. Whereas like making money somewhere else, and then the podcast it became a facet of it. But it seems like you had a good momentum going into starting the gallery.
Exactly.
And that now you're being able to pursue something that you are more refined. And so how are you trying to get that bigger client base? I mean, I think I would imagine that being able to establish new collectors has some kind of street cred.
Yeah.
In terms of making that transition. I one of the things that like I had to dispossess myself of was this idea that like galleries open and they're all huge. Like I don't think
takes time.
Yeah, I don't think that happens. That's one of the first things that really sunk in with talking to Tyler, because like I mean Francois is almost, as according to him, and I agree, is almost blue chip at this point.
Yeah.
And so to hear that it was once a tiny gallery is sort of interesting. So it's interesting to hear how people use their own resources to sort of get to where they want to go.
Yeah.
Not that you are, not that you're diminishing the work that you've been doing, but because I think, I mean, it's pretty impressive to make people interested in spending money on art. That's not like,
I agree.
I think it's almost maybe harder to turn someone from somebody that's buying something decorative to like, hey, you know what? I really like this piece and maybe I want to spend a little bit more on that. And I talked to an art advisor that's a friend of mine, and she was telling me that she's tried to sell people pieces that she thinks she says she never tells people they're going to do well, but that the pieces are going to do well, but that she would not be surprised if it performed well for them in the portfolio. And then they look at the piece and they're like, I don't like it, so they don't buy it. And what I think one of the things that she left me realizing is that people buy things that they like, you know, even if they say that they're like investors, you know, investment focused. Like if you don't like a piece, you're not going to believe in it, you know.
We're unapologetically focused on aesthetic. I know that's like a you know, touchy subject, let's say, a hot button, but it is what it is. Like if you, again, we don't come from academia or the kind of prestigious background to be shy from that, because to your point, like it's got to look pretty on your wall. And the bonus is knowing a little bit more about the artist, meeting an artist, and those relationships might take a while, right? We might have people interested in work and they need to see 2-3 shows and then, you know, maybe meet the artist, then they decide that this is the right thing they want to live with for the rest of their life. And additionally to that, maybe there's good odds that it's going to go up in value. But we're not supposed to be financial advisors. So, but coming back to what you were saying, the momentum, if you will, it was that specifically that prompted the gallery. So the best way to put it is that I was buying from other dealers and reselling, and one of those dealers is the current space we're in. And so he was in the space, and I chat with him often and seen him at Rose Bowl. And he said he was getting out
at
of
the
flea
football
market.
No.
The flea market.
Okay.
Is that what it's called? I haven't been.
Did you say Rose Bowl?
Yeah.
There's one. I was like, your football. How much time do you have in the day? You're into cars?
No, not anti-sports, but big distraction, right? And he was getting out of the space, the space we have. And it was at that moment that we had pretty good luck selling to a designer, Christina Hernowski, Studio Kita. And she was sort of an early adopter for us in purchasing a number of works by one of our strongest selling artists. His name's Nick Biddle. He's local. He's a light and space artist. He works with resin and natural pigments. And she placed work in a nice home that was published in AD and overseas publications and such. But it gave us the momentum, both mentally and financially, to decide to give it a shot. And so when the spot came up, it was very low threshold from the landlord, was, you know, not official checks and 5-year leases commitment. And we really just imagined we would do a one and done. So we got the keys on September 1st and, you know, redid the walls a little bit and hung up all the proper gallery lighting and opened our first show on September 29th. Which I still am shocked that we did that, considering we've never done anything like it. We organized the show, and our first 2 painters is Jonathan Todrick from Texas and Colt Seager from Chicago.
And he's in the show now.
He's in the show right now. And so this is our 3rd time showing him, and it's his first solo show.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And he's been, you know, gaining a lot of momentum, has representation in a couple of states here and representation in Europe. And we just believe in him. And Jonathan Todrick as well, which he should have a solo show towards the end of the year, early next year. And so that was it, is that we had good luck selling contemporary work out of this apartment and then leveraged that into a proper, you know,
interesting
gallery. And it's been good, and we've never missed a date, and I think we've always shown really good work and continue to refine it.
No, but I mean, it's so enterprising, the approach, right? Like, someone would assume that you have to go rub elbows and like go to all the galleries and get to know all the people, which I know you do, because I've seen you do that. But it's just interesting how to take. I mean, it sounds like you just took a skill set and then you just refined it and became an art dealer, almost in a circuitous. I forget I use that word, or in a roundabout way. Circuitous. I don't know that.
Get the thesaurus.
I do that all the time. That's staying in. So it's just interesting to hear, and So then how do you go about like finding artists? How did you meet these people? How did you meet the guy out in Texas? Were you already selling their work through the
No, actually. I think most galleries and dealers can admit it at this point is that Instagram is the best resource because you can just think about it like anything, like a publication that's just uninhibited and international and immediate. So it just makes sense that you find good talent through something like that, and you don't need the, the institutions and the publications to tell you what's good. So it's up to you to sort of parse through that all. So Instagram, and then another good word of advice that I forget where I heard this, but it's not a new idea, of course. Other artists.
Yeah.
Once you meet one, of course they're around the MFA students at a school, etc.
Yeah.
Those recommendations are great.
I'm starting to do like recommendations. The only thing that I can't do with AI is book the show.
Yeah.
So now I'm just outsourcing that to my friends and be like, hey, who do you think would be good?
Makes sense. Referral program.
Yeah. It's just easier. But I mean, I do basically do the same thing when I book people. I just use Instagram. I'm like, oh, this person seems interesting. They seem, sometimes people throw out red flags and I'm like, yeah, this person, I like the work, but it seemed difficult to work with. But
I hear that.
Yeah. But
we've had really good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've never had like a nightmare situation. Everything's been nothing, worst case, it's frustrating. In retrospect, it's a great lesson.
Yeah.
We're very, honored and excited that happens. So we know, might be somebody we never work with again, or we didn't sell anything of it. And, none of that's guaranteed anyway. So it's just, it's nice perspective. But you were asking about Jonathan, the first painter.
Yeah. How did you? So it's Instagram. Yeah.
And that was sort of the beginning of my faith, actually. So Jonathan Todrick, he's a Christian painter.
Oh, really?
As is Colt. Colt went to Wheaton College, which is a theological school in Chicago. He studied printmaking, but Jonathan has always been a creative. He was in church band, I think, for a long time, and he was a painter, drawer growing up. And
one of the things that doesn't get enough play in consciousness is like, what I think that churches are more dedicated to music education than even the school systems
really?
Are. Yeah,
I can believe that. Yeah.
When I was working at Guitar Center, I mean, the amount of guitars that I sold, I supplied a whole education system just through that.
Through the church.
Through churches, yeah.
That's
People would come with their kids, and they're like, they're doing worship music and stuff. I'm not really a church guy, but but it's just it's interesting how some of these things like because like music education, like as you're talking about Christian painters and stuff. I had an artist named Dia Jenkins. She is a non-denominational artist or a Christian, and to me, it's interesting to think about how much the church was intrinsic to art, intrinsic to architecture, intrinsic to civic life, and now it's like a taboo,
demonized.
Like so to the point where like it's not normal for someone to use that as a descriptor of an artist, right? Like I'm not criticizing you. I'm just observing a situational thing where it was like everything used to be like Christian but kind of perverted, and now it's just perverted but like completely like disgusted almost and contemptful of religion in a weird way, but only specific religions, right?
Sure. Yeah. I think it's kind of swung though.
Yeah.
Like I was at a show that opened last week. I forget the name of the gallery, but they're showing Kento Saisho. It was Nino Meyer's old gallery, not far from here, I think, near Lincoln Heights.
Yeah.
And her name is Kala something, but I just connected with her because of this show. And it's a lot of religious iconography and, kind of just...
Well, Mexicans and Latinos are allowed to use that iconography, but if you're a white dude, I don't know that would play so well,
maybe
right?
Not.
Yeah, no, but it's just interesting. I highlight that because I think that's kind of like That's a little racist towards the
Sure.
you know, like not towards the white dude, but towards the like, oh, hands off of these things that I object to in any other context.
Yeah.
You know, but because I have sympathy for the brown man,
Yeah.
you know, but it's just, I don't know, the whole art world, and it's so vast and expansive. It's just interesting to discuss that. Like I told you, I'm pretty much agnostic unless I need God, and
For
then
sure.
then I'm like, hey, I'm sad.
He's always there for you, dude. Always there.
But and whatever that is, whether it's real or not, it makes me feel better. You
Yeah.
know, like whether it's like scientifically, objectively true.
Yeah.
You know, like it gives me comfort, and so I just think that's interesting. It's interesting to just hear that. So anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
So that how did that end up helping you? How did that artist help you end up helping you with faith?
Well, still to date, he's pretty open about it. And so some of his earlier posts, and I still think today, there will be some scripture, just a simple, piece of the Bible, the word, which I think that's my takeaway, is it doesn't have to be complicated. You can hear something really simple and it can just profoundly change your attitude, your day, your life, what have you.
Yeah.
And at this time, it was just a rough time for me, and personally, and my dog, who was my best friend, of course, at this time. And I say, of course, people don't know. I mean, I came here, alone in 2016 and didn't.
From where are you from?
Arizona.
Oh, okay.
And I never moved anywhere, lived anywhere else.
Yeah.
And so when I moved here, I had a best mate that convinced me to move here for years, and I finally did. And then 3 months later, they moved to New York. And so I was like, okay, I'm here. And I just figured it out, and still to date, and I'm relatively thankful for it in some ways, is I don't have like a real friend group where I hang out with and get drinks on a Friday.
Yeah.
And so in 2020, especially, it was pretty, isolating, if you will. And then my dog was dying, and that was very expensive and very stressful. And Jonathan Todrick, the painter, he had posted something, and I don't remember, probably screenshot somewhere.
Yeah.
But I did mark the date. I think it was like right by Christmas. It was like December 22nd or 21st, I believe. And he just posted something, and it super, resonated with me. And so I sent him a message, and we hadn't, I don't think we chatted too much. It was here and there. Like you, I would comment. It was fairly new on my radar. And I said something, and I said, hey man, it's felt like this was like meant for me. And it was really heavy. And we chatted back and forth for a little bit, and he asked if I wanted to hop on a call. And we hopped on a call, and we chatted for probably an hour and a half. And
you didn't have the space at this time?
I had my apartment.
But you hadn't transitioned. Yeah,
no, that was 2 years later.
Yeah.
And at the end of the call, he prayed for me, said a prayer, and that was it. And we became really good friends after that. We still never met, but we chat every day. And he introduced me to Colt, the current painter. And it was like a year and a half later that we got the gallery, and they were the first two painters I showed. And I called that show In Good Faith for, the obvious reasons of it being kind of faith-based painters. And also the slogan that, like, in good faith, that they were to trust somebody that had no history or credibility necessarily, to show their work with me, and to impact their, CV. It's been great. And that was it. So it was at that moment, actually, in December of 2020. And I, like many, had meditated, never did therapy, but I meditated. I did morning pages. This way.
That's therapy.
It was very helpful. Yeah. So
all right, that's also meditation too.
For sure. And so those are all the tools you need to just connect the final dot, which I believe, is your faith and, your creator.
Yeah.
And so I was there, and I had the trauma, I had gone through the fire necessary to figure out, that you need something more than yourself. And that was kind of it.
Well, yeah. And it's one of those things I just find it an interesting thing that people are like so against I understand that it stands in like if you're pro-choice and stuff like that, I can understand feeling some type of way about it.
Yeah.
But the disdain is different. You know, like I understand. I also don't understand how people disagree with stuff these days. But it's interesting to hear gallerists representing artists that are of faith talking about it, because I don't have a problem with it, you know.
Yeah.
But I know that some people would, and I think that that's kind of weird and silly and kind of, you know, like I just posted a clip with Pranay and I talking about how the National Endowment of the Arts changed to patriotism, like they're focusing more on patriotism, and we're like discussing what it means and what the potential for that is. And someone put a really angry post in it saying something about how like patriotism is antithetical to art, and I'm like, bro, like art is one of the most misunderstood things, and I think it's taught in this way. Like art has always been somewhat institutional.
For sure.
This idea that it's a rebellion and like, I mean, it's propaganda. It has been for a very long time.
Everyone knows that too.
Yeah, so it's just so strange, and it's just so strange, like how contemporary art, you know, I think it just does this like linear thing where people think that they figured it all out. Like science came in and answered all of life's questions and soothed all of your fears of mortality and shit like that. Like to me, it's so arrogant, you know.
And it says, you know, that it is a constant, you know, reinvention and discovery. Science, like it admits that it doesn't have it. It's not settled.
Yeah, and it specifically says that if we don't have an answer, we don't speculate. You know, that once you start doing that, now you're in the realm of faith. And I think that is something that is inherently human, and people don't want to acknowledge that. They want to pretend that they've taken that part of themselves away, and then they start believing in things that, like, you know. And I'm not like everybody believes in something that's not true. I'm sure I believe in a whole bunch of shit that I thought I was taught that is not real. And just because it didn't come from the church doesn't mean it's not bullshit.
Yeah. Well, like you said, the thing is that, you know, where is the human if there's nothing left to figure out?
Yeah.
You know, like the basis of everything is discovery and exploration and curiosity. And it's a lifelong pursuit. You know, some of the smartest academics who are at the end of their life would tell you that, and that they know nothing and all that stuff. Coming back to what you said too about, you know, it's interesting that a gallery can be show artists like we do. You know, the good news is you don't have to like us. You know, you don't have to support us.
Oh man, that's the policy here too.
Yeah, and
to our detriment, but
and you know, we just ask that you don't try to defame us or speak poorly or libel.
But I think that your faith is so like light, you know.
Sure.
Just like it's almost like you don't really. It borders on being spiritual, you know. For sure. Like so I think that a lot of people in LA can get on board with that, but yeah, I on my realization earlier, you know, I think it was today or yesterday, it's just the realization of like, hey man, I'm not down with the church, but I believe a lot of the shit they taught me, and that's a weird realization to have, you know, because it's like, yeah, I mean, you know, my church has a lot of pedophiles in it.
Sure. They're everywhere, man.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
The bad news is that they're everywhere.
They're fucking everywhere. They're definitely in government.
Mm-hmm.
But well, cool. Like, let's get back to like, that's once I hit pedophiles in the church, it's time to reset.
Yeah, you're demonetized. Unsubscribed.
Yeah. But no, I mean, that's cool. So it's just an interesting journey, and I think that to me, it's enlightening to talk to you, to talk to Liz Hirsch. I'm going to continue trying to interview other galleries. If you know any people that you can recommend to me, that'd be very dope. But yeah, I like, this is all shit that I don't know, you know, like, and I think it's amazing that you can just start something as a car guy
Yeah.
that is like the antithesis, you know.
Yeah.
It's like you're rebelling, you know, but you're bringing your aesthetic, but it's not like your aesthetic doesn't necessarily fit in, you know.
Right.
It doesn't look lowbrow. You're not doing lowbrow kind of kitschy shit, you
Right.
know. It's still fine art. It just the collector base is different, you know.
That being said, if anything, we are, you know, riding that fine line of refining it. And, you know, the 2 years of running a gallery, how we did, like, I might say in retrospect, was sort of ran more like a project space. We didn't do performance. We didn't do installation. We didn't do video or anything like this. That for me is a really fine line, like you said, of becoming lowbrow or just sort of, you know, unapproachable for a lot of people. They don't know where that lies. And so our focus over the past couple shows and going forward is painters.
Yeah.
It's going to be a fine art painting gallery. Probably this year especially, we won't see any pottery. Just for reference, you know, we've done shows that were all pottery, where nothing was hung on the wall. We've done all object shows with Doug Meyer, who's a New York artist who we love dearly and who's believed in us way before I was doing the gallery, and has been a great mentor to us as well. And we want to continue, you know, working with him. We've dabbled in showing in Design Miami, and then also doing Nada with another artist.
Design Miami, that's the one that's in the Arts District, right?
No, it's directly across from the tent, the Basel.
Oh, okay. Does that? No, you know what? It's Art Miami. No, my Made in Miami is the one that was there. Sorry.
There's so many.
Yeah.
The
but Nada is the one that's at the Ice House. That's also
that's
a big
off
one.
the island. I love Nada there.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Granted, I don't have great perspective because I haven't been to any other states or countries to look at art.
Yeah.
But I think Ice House is a good time.
No, I mean it seems like it's poised to be really interesting because it is the alliance of galleries, right? So it's like I know that what's it called? Moonzone Gallery in Long Beach. They did a show in they did Untitled Art Fair as via a sponsorship, which is I think is really cool. It's really interesting being outside of Miami and seeing how all these things work in these ways. Like, for example, I didn't know what NADA was. I just knew it was NADA, New Art Dealers Alliance, but I didn't know it was like literally an alliance until I talked to Tyler.
Nice.
Yeah. So are you guys part of NADA or
no?
But you're showing.
We're considering.
Yeah.
You know, fairs are not like in the books for us. I think this year we're still again coming back to those.
It's a lot of labor.
Money, labor, just the risk. Of course, it's all risk, but because we've sort of found new footing this year. It started with Richard Shapiro's show, which we showed in January. It was off-site. It was on La Brea. And he, again, mentor, older guy, been around for a long time. He was on the board of acquisitions at Mocha for like 6 years. He has a blue chip art collection. He's been a collector dealer. And here he is at 80 years old, and he's making work again. He had a gallery career in the 90s as well. And he, again, really kind of steered us a bit more into the, you know, present like Pace, present like Gagosian, treat it like that, everything down to the verbiage, you know, no fluff. And
I've been doing the same shit. I've been having AI write my shit in the voice of David Zorner.
I love that.
It's so funny. And sometimes I'll cringe and I'm like, I'm committed.
Art speak, man. It is what it is. We still, again, we put sauce on it, you know. It's not always that formal.
It's not always
it
stuffy.
Depends on how I feel when I wake up, you know, like what's the Instagram post? Am I going to be a little snarky today? Or, you know, am I just going to, you know, keep it really straightforward and move on with like the important things of the day?
Yeah.
You know? So anyways, this can kind of feel like a 2.0 for us in how we run the gallery. And I lost track a bit about what I was going at, but it's going to be a painting gallery. And also thinking about Ríos and how you were talking about his collector base. And I like Ríos a lot because of who he is and his work, style works great.
Non-BFA artist, which is very rare.
Is he?
Yeah. Didn't go to art school. Learned all painting through graffiti. I got an episode with him. I'm gonna turn you into a fan, dog.
Yeah, that's right. I am. You see me? I like.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, I was making a joke, but then it got awkward because you are a fan.
Yeah. No, I don't follow anyone else that does this.
Oh well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's very sculptural, right? Like he's always been pretty sculptural, and then this new work he had at Charlie James, we were big fans of that. There's not a commitment yet, but just throwing it out there, he may be showing with us in a couple months.
Oh, cool.
In a small group show with Edward Givas.
Okay.
You know Edward Givas?
No.
He started his career with graphite drawings that we really like, and we owned one, and they were this sort of reference to his childhood and iconography, which is sort of the focus on this summer show, which is like nostalgia and iconography. And they were just these sort of close-ups of like shovels and screws and tools, and they all kind of had a symbolic reference to experiences as a kid. And then he moved into oil paintings in color the past couple of years, which we really like. And again, similar nostalgic ideas, Americana, I would almost say. It feels like simple gestures and ideas. And then Ríos, we know what it looks like. And artist based in Japan, Satoshi Okada. And he has this very strange hybrid way of painting that's something sort of like screen printing and spray painting and stenciling. And he basically found this method to create images that looked like the screens of like televisions in the 80s and like anime style. And sort of blurry lines and pixelated images. And a lot of these are these sort of almost like post-human scenes of like a room with the human removed and a bit of exaggeration of like technology, almost like steampunky, it could feel like. And they're really cool. Yeah. And so anyways, Ríos, it could be a Ríos, Edward Givas, and Satoshi Okada show in July, I believe. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. So anyways, the focus will be painters. It will be sculptural painters. It will be minimalist painters. We have one figurative painter that we work with consistently. His name's Shea Bredimus. He's based out of Long Beach. Another guy we really love. Great faith as well. And he paints like a master. And they're these kind of everyday scenes often of Long Beach and the surrounding areas that are like the front lawn of like a broken down car and a water fountain, and they all have statues of like Greek gods and other religious icons, Mary, but they're like cheap plaster, one's just in the yard,
not
just
marble.
Exactly. The scenes you see, and he just paints these with a masterful technique and beautiful like neon orange underpainting, and just great shadowing techniques. And
are you guys at all interested in going into refining beyond a aesthetics? What
would that look like?
No, I don't know, but I mean, because it sounds like just an artist like Christopher Ríos is more pointed in what his subject matter is, and it sounds like all these pieces, all this work is heading more not necessarily towards an academic, but the kind of thing that is in that that other realm that it sounded like you were trying to transition from seeding your own collectors to getting collectors that are already established and already have collections. Is that the objective?
A bit of both. I see. It's a good question. Yeah, we'll continue to focus on, again, relationships is kind of number one for me. The art, I'm just gonna say, inherently is gonna be good. Objectively, and so it could be self-taught. It could be, no MFA. And I don't know, but I think that definitely just to simplify it from a purely aesthetic standpoint, you should expect like minimalism, shape, color.
Okay. That's a good answer. Yeah.
And then, you know, the work and the purpose and the reason for their work is the whole other side of it. And of course, we illustrate and speak on that, just depending, you know, but you might just see like Colt's work and just see like shape and color and lines. But there's a lot of narrative there, actually. And there's a lot of storytelling there.
Yeah. So. No, you can tell that the surfaces on those paintings there's weight to them.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It's not. It doesn't feel like an empty, decorative drawing painting. That's why I was surprised how you. I was surprised how what your collector base is. You know, but because it seems like, pardon the terminology, but it seems like it is designed but elevated or highbrow. You know, as opposed to kitsch, as opposed to, you know, like I think that, like, not that there's anything wrong with kitsch, and not that kitsch doesn't have its own place within the quote unquote fine art academic realities. I'm obviously not averse to kitsch, right?
Yeah.
But it just seems like there's like an aesthetic elegance that kind of stays within what you would expect walking into a gallery, as opposed to, you know, like, you know, as opposed to walking into a space that's all salon style group shows and shit like that. You know, like it does it. It was that's what I'm saying. I didn't know how you guys sustained yourselves, and congratulations on being able to do it. I just didn't know that element of it, and it's interesting to see, because the space doesn't strike me as if it is. It seems like it's just happenstance that's your collector base.
Yes.
Not that you are specifically
like
targeting that. Yeah,
exactly.
Like, even though maybe early on you targeted it, now it seems like you're maturing into a more art world specific, like you said, with the branding is a little bit more like how I'm doing with my branding, which is like we're talking the language of the art world, you know, even though we may be subverting it in some ways. So it's just interesting to hear, because, like, honestly, who the fuck knows? I'm about to do an artist talk at a space, and I don't know how they make a living. I don't know how any fucking gallery survives. You know, so
you said it earlier, it's a real blessing that anybody wants to spend money for paint on their wall.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But it's just so fascinating, because I think that, like, if I had just seen that space, I would have just been like, I don't know how they sell, but they look like they sell, you know, and I don't know who they sell to and all of that. But
well, that's the thing.
But you also a new gallery, so you started in with one way, and now it seems like you're, especially if you're like trying to show people like Ríos, you know, like that shows an intention. And I've seen you at like shows that are considered more mainstream, like art world shows, you know, like I would not be surprised seeing you at a Francois Guibali, which is what I'm saying. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I would put you not maybe in the same tier, but in the same kind of world, as opposed to like a gallery that is specifically telegraphing that they are for design. Which Miami has a lot of that. You know, so I can spot that. So anyway, that's basically the point that I'm making. So I see what you're saying about like straddling both sides of it. You know,
I kind of have to. As a means of survival. You know, like it's sort of just hard to. I put my chips all in on being a dealer. And now, as far as how I sell the art, that's got to be diversified and adventurous and open-minded. You know, considered. I don't want to shoot myself in the foot, because it is so much about the outward aesthetic, and I don't want to do something cheesy or kitschy. You know, something that might be, you know, relative to that right now is that, did you see on Thursday we're doing a thing at the Ace Hotel? And
I saw that. I saw the post.
So Commune Design, who did the Ace Hotel in Palm Springs originally, has revisited it and refreshed it. In the Amigo room, I guess, was sort of their iconic kind of dive bar, very seedy and dark, and bands would play. They've completely renovated it to a much more approachable, kind of international, a little bit more posh feel. And they acquired some work from us for the redo, and then asked us for the website and photo shoot if we would be interested in hanging work for that. And so we used the same artist, Linda Keeler, who they purchased a piece by. Her pretty much one of her largest pieces she's done, and it's oil on linen, and she's typically acrylic. Beautiful work, and it really is the centerpiece of the place. And so we did a salon style hanging of these new little oil paintings she did on found vintage frames. So that arguably is not what a Gabali would do.
Yeah.
But, I also just have to imagine we are so many years away from like needing to uphold, if the times are even like that and industries like that anymore, that you couldn't possibly do that because it's in poor style.
Yeah.
But
poor taste. Yeah.
Poor taste. We're aligned with Commune Design, who is arguably one of the best interior designers in the world. So like, why should we not be stoked about that collaboration?
No, and for sure, and another thing I didn't realize before I did this show is that architects also have to pursue their own press, and so to me, I think of it as sort of like that kind of a thing, right? Like, and I don't think it hurts to have taste outside of the arts, right? Like for you to be a connoisseur of like vintage antiques and stuff like that, it's not. It's I think the car thing is the one the one that stands out. But it's really, look, this is fascinating. I like I said when I had Tyler on the show, is like, artists don't think about this shit. Like they think that, these people don't want me, so fuck them. And I like that we're literally learning what galleries have to do to survive. And you guys are a respected space. I think I think that I don't think that this is hurting your brand.
No.
I think it's just something that like artists just are, it's new to me. And I'm just fascinated by it. And I think it what I like about these conversations is like, you guys gotta eat,
Yeah, exactly.
And so you do what you can. I know Cirrus Gallery has been around for years, but they had to be a print shop primarily, And so it's always interesting how people use the resources they have to become what they want to become.
I feel like our tools of survival are still very like legitimate and respectable. And if anything, as the art world is shifting and some of the top is falling out, when it comes to what all the people within art or adjacent to it, like the street culture, fashion, etc., that is so without rules. So I think that a little bit of that into the art world is really beneficial and really comforting and allows people to feel more invited to it. And that's, again, that is also on the back end a bit of our strategy, is that we want to soften that hurdle. So people that do, understand the nice dinners and the luxury cars and the traveling, who might collect cause right now, or Kid Robot, understand like why it's cool to have a painting from this guy that they've never heard of, and let a dealer kind of explain that to them.
No, for sure.
It coming back, I wanted to say too, regarding like the kitsch statement, if anything too, our focus is definitely, because of my background in the cars and because of my interest in design and fabrication and artistry that has to withstand 10,000 RPMs and road racing, I'm really much interested in artists that focus on materiality and quality. And you mentioned Colt, his material use is really high quality oil paints and linen canvases, and he cuts and makes his own oak and walnut frames, and so they are an object in itself too. In talking about the Ríos show, clearly Ríos is all custom panels, nice material. Edward is the same. He's really good at that. And then Satoshi Okada, same thing. His process is so involved. He's not going to use a cheap off the shelf canvas. And so that's part. If that's relative to not being kitsch at all.
Mm.
We're interested in showing painters and artists that have like a very high quality front to back. You can flip it around and be amazed
Impeccable.
by the stretcher bars. Too.
Craftsmanship. No, that's interesting. I think I had told you that we're way over an hour, so we can start wrapping up.
Yeah.
But I had told you that I wanted a GR86, which is the Toyota baby brother to the Supra.
Right.
And you were telling me that you wanted an M3, and I told you, I was like, I don't really like German cars and that much, although Volkswagen is the second biggest car company manufacturer in the world. Yeah. But I realized what I would get, and it's the Cadillac, it's the Blackwing, the CTSV.
Oh, nice. They're still doing them?
I don't know if they're still doing them. I would get a used one.
I've seen Cadillacs, you know?
Oh, really?
I mean, you don't see a lot on the road.
No, not unfortunately, not as much as you used to. Yeah.
You know, I'm starting to see,
but those
like,
things are fucking
Buick.
dope.
Oh yeah, I mean, like even the was it the, not the SLS? What was the CTSV?
Yeah.
CTSV was very cool.
Yeah. And then the Blackwing specifically is the track version that's like a monster. Those I really like. I really liked. I don't know. I'm trying to be a GM guy. You know, I like Chevy. I like all that stuff. I was a brand ambassador for Ford, but they don't make anything quite like the Fiesta anymore or anything like that.
The RS and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that Mustang, the
supercar one.
The one, well, that too, but the GT, but the Mustang they did that had the flat plane crank V8. It was the
the dark horse
GT350R.
Oh yeah.
GT350R had a flat plane V8. It sounds bonkers. Just like, I'll send you a YouTube.
Cool.
No Mustang sounds like this.
Mustangs are just like dime store cars. You know, like there's so many of them.
There are. Yeah,
but I mean, they're still dope. I'm like everybody else, getting nostalgic for the Fox body and stuff.
For sure. Well, my favorite Ford is a 61 to 63 Thunderbird.
Yes.
With the bullet tail lights, like they tell us, you know.
I even like the ugly ones, not the retro redesigns, but the really ugly boxy ones.
Yeah,
those
like
things,
70s, 80s, anything, just boats. I dig it.
Yeah,
they did do a good job on that retro one though. When you see them now, they like aged well. Like they actually made it look like a proper like 60s car.
Yeah, it was just so, that era was so flooded with that style of language that it's hard for me to get past it. But it's funny how like cars will come out. Like I used to think that the Maxima and the Altima were dope cars when they were brand new in like the early 2000s, like that generation. And now I look at them and they're just so ragged, you know. Same thing with the G35s and all that. We should just do this off air because no one cares.
Yeah.
But well, cool, man. Anything? Go ahead.
Anything else you want to know about how we do it, what we do?
I mean, basically, like, I think I got a pretty good sense because it's one of those things that I'm probably going to have more questions afterwards, but I'll be in touch.
Yeah.
And I can always have you back on at like, you know, a few years down the road, see where you guys are at.
You know, once we get some fairs under our belt, maybe a new space. And I really desire more of a white cube. I like the scrappy, humble nature of where we started and you know, still where we are, but I could use more wall space.
For sure. No, for sure. Yeah. And it's always good to have bigger ambition, you know.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in this world, if you're not growing, you're shrinking.
Yeah.
And like literally with inflation.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, that's again another thing I feel very stoked about is that because the big in anything is just become more expensive, overhead, staffing, you know, we're lucky to be light and agile. And it's hard to measure if it was better a year ago, but I would say kind of without a doubt, everything feels better about today than it did yesterday.
Yeah.
And we're on a great trajectory, and it always feels like it's just the beginning. And just very optimistic about where we'll take the business. And
I'm just so fascinated to learn about the business and how that shit works. And like, and it seems like in the grand scheme of things, Tyler Park, you guys are about the same age, but I think he had a bit of a more access and more leverage. It's interesting to hear how you are doing it to stay afloat. Like just because I mean, I'm sure there's so many different ways. Like Liz Hirsch I talked to, they're basically running it out of their house, so they don't have overhead.
Yeah.
And
that's how I started, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
but they're like they basically live with 2 kids in a house that's essentially empty. And then I was asking her, every Friday they clear it out.
Yeah.
They have to do like the cleanup of the place.
Cool. Yeah, link me to that.
Yeah. No, her episode will come out probably sometime in April or May. But
we're also thinking of doing that too. We're gonna maybe program 2 or 3 exhibitions out of the department a year.
Oh yeah.
We just chatted with Laura Wahlberg yesterday. She's a painter out of Roanoke, Virginia. She does these beautiful kind of muddy plein airs that she just paints outside. She's showing all around the world, in Tokyo, New York, LA, and she paints primarily small, and so it's also a good opportunity to kind of latch on to whatever the market or trend says about like small work's hot.
Yeah.
Maybe that's for the fiscal reasons or that people are out of room. I think both could be true, but we might as well. And they're just these beautiful little chocolatey paintings, you know. And we chatted with her yesterday. She might be the first artist we do this like apartment gallery with, which I think will be exciting because aesthetically it'll be more domesticated. We'll shoot it more editorially with a bit more mood, and of course it'll have architectural interventions in the documentation. So.
Well, after talking to 3 people that run spaces, and then also Pranay, who runs LA Art Corps, which is a nonprofit, what I've noticed, what I've really come to realize is that I can have artists in here every single day, and they'll still be able to be an artist no matter how much money they make.
Yeah.
But
amazing.
But being a gallerist, you can't be a gallery if you don't sell anything.
It's a business,
it's that is really the crazy thing, and I think that there's a privilege to being an artist and not having to like sell and not having to do any of that stuff. And it's just interesting to see the realities of how these things, because like I said, I wouldn't even know where to fucking start. I could literally open a gallery tomorrow, and I know galleries that struggle with sales, and they've been, and I'm like, I tell them like, hey, maybe you should be a not-for-profit, because you want to do programming and then you're getting mad that the programming isn't selling. But like, if you want to do your own programming, there's nobody stopping you from that. Yeah. It's really, I'm really getting into the nitty gritty of how this shit works. And I literally know spaces that that can't pay their bills. They have,
Nobody has to buy anything, like we said, man.
Yeah.
So I can't be mad. I can be perplexed or confused, but all that does is force me to kind of think differently and work hard to make outreach and connect and put myself in front of them, pick up the phone.
But again, I'm saying if you can create new collectors, that seems like the clout is building.
Yeah.
Where you can actually get people into good collections, like, into like something that that wouldn't be determined or wouldn't be frowned upon or whatever, like whatever the idea is. It's just interesting. I literally don't like I'm saying, I'm like learning out loud. But it's crazy. Like, you don't think about how much these spaces need to do. Whereas like all you have to do is have a fucking room and draw if you're an artist.
Yeah, sure.
I think that distinction is pretty intense.
Yeah. Yeah. It really gives you perspective for, the onus and risk that galleries put up. Just hanging a show, documenting a show, giving you some beer, wine, water, the gallery software. I mean, it just keeps going.
Yeah. So it's a serious undertaking, and it's amazing to just keep asking people how they piece it together, because you don't know how the fuck that shit works. Word. But yeah, I definitely see the car guy in you and the car guy hustle. I don't think artists hustle that hard. I mean,
some don't.
Some don't.
Yeah.
But well, cool, man. Anything that I didn't ask you that you maybe wanted to get out before the recording's done?
I think we're good, man.
All right, cool.
We could go on.
I know, especially about cars.
Yeah, cars in the world.
Cars in the world,
we'll keep it tight.
I can't believe that we started with tariffs.
Right.
I was like, sometimes I start an episode, I'm like, I can't believe it's 10 minutes in, we're already here. Well, cool. Thank you so much for doing the show. Rhett Baruch at Rhett Baruch?
At Rhett.Baruch.Gallery.
Okay.
But usually Rhett B will
We'll
pull it right out.
Okay, yeah.
RhettBaruch.com.
Yeah, and your aesthetics, you guys really do have. I think that's one of the benefits of your branding. You didn't cringe at the word branding, so I'm not worried about using it. But you guys look like really, really sharp. I'm surprised that you 2022. That's like 3.5 years ago. Yeah. So
no, 2.5.
2.5.
Right? Is it 3?
It's
end of 2022.
End of 2022. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really impressive.
Thanks.
No,
I mean, it takes really good people to help you do it.
Do you have good designers?
Yeah, my boy Victor Vasquez at Snake's Blood.
I might have to hit him up for my branding shit.
Always, if you need a logo, flyer, full menu design, whatever. He's an illustrator at heart, and people told him to go to school to be a designer, and so he's an artist designer.
Yeah.
But yeah, he does all my stuff.
Cool, man.
Really good.
All right, and then if you guys enjoyed the conversation, like and subscribe. Please do it. It pushes us out to find other artists that want this kind of content. Comment. You might end up on the show. No, that's an empty promise. I'm gonna get I'm gonna get prosecuted by the SEC for well, that's security and exchange. That's stocks, but whatever. And then comment, rate us 5 stars, review us. We haven't had a review in years, so if you guys don't mind dropping a review, even if you're my personal friend, drop a review. I'm asking you. And we have Patreon. Early access episodes are $5 a month. Sign up for that, and you'll get the audio version a week ahead of time. And we'll be back next week with another guest and another topic that may or may not be art related. Thank you, man.
Thank you, brother.
No worries.